Welcome to the show with personal brand authority, Lida Citroen. Lida is an award-winning executive coach, speaker, and author working with clients in over 30 countries. She helps professionals, entrepreneurs, and business leaders manage the way they're perceived by the people who matter most. From leadership development, influence building, to strategic communications and social media positioning, Lida's work is thoughtful, motivating, and practical. Get ready for a great program. Here's Lida. Welcome to the show with personal brand.
How about that? Didn't you want to hear it twice? Hello out there. I have missed you. I think last came to you at the end of August when we did a huge online party to celebrate the launch of my newest book, The New Rules of Influence. If you've already gotten your copy, I hope you've dived in and you've been reading the material and taking notes and highlighting. Many of you have shared with me how important this book is and how much it has helped you. If you don't have your copy yet, well, the good news is it's available everywhere books are sold. So whether you're an audiobook reader, a Kindle reader, or a tactical book reader like I am, go ahead and grab your copy so that you can enjoy the tools and the messaging and the motivation that I share in this book. It has been a couple months since I came and visited with you and shared some content. So we're picking these back up. We've got some great guest speakers who are going to be joining me over the next few months. And today I have some fabulous content for you. If you've been on my live programs before, you know, one of my favorite things is to hear where you're dialing in from. So in the chat, if you would be so kind as to put the city, the country, the state, wherever it is you're dialing in from into the chat, then I can see who's joining us today. Managing the chat and producing this program is Sabrina Gilg, who's my marketing manager, and we've been together about 4.5 years. So if you've been on one of these live programs before, you know Sabrina is going to handle questions and all of the thoughts that are going to come up during the program. Today, we're talking about a pretty fundamental, but a really important topic, and it's how you define or how you elevate your personal brand to build your visibility and grow your voice. It's a topic I've worked on for 20 years, and I'm going to do a little bit different kind of a program today where I'm actually going to show you some visuals. So wish me luck. Technology isn't always my friend, but we're going to pretend today it is. So I wanted to ask anybody who is watching this, watching us live, are you working on building your brand to the next level, or are you working on starting to build a brand? In the chat, let me know if this is new to you and you haven't really thought about personal branding and you're just kind of curious what it is, or if this is an opportunity to elevate your brand as you think about going into the new year. The holidays and the end of the year tend to always be an opportunity for us to sort of reflect on what worked and think about what could be, right? Where are the opportunities going forward based on market conditions, based on where we are in our career, and what we really want out of life? We think about what could I do different next year? Where can I grow? Where do I need to set some boundaries maybe? And where can I really amplify my message? So to make this program personal to you, let me know throughout the program if there are things that I can amplify or ways that I can help you really dive into what you're focused on today. With that, I want to get started thinking about what branding is. Oh, thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. She says next level. She's looking to elevate her brand into the next phase of her career. Well, we'll definitely be talking about that. I want to talk about what branding is and the whole idea of why we build a brand is because of this thing called perception and judgment and ideas and beliefs and opinions. And I do a lot of training around this because people often don't like when I talk about judgment. They don't like when I talk about stereotypes and beliefs and opinions. But what we know is that how other people see us drives whether they want to hire us, promote us, advance us, give us those high visibility projects or not. So other people's perception of us matters. Not everyone's perception of us, because there are people who really aren't in our sphere of influence. They aren't people that are going to directly impact our ability to grow, right? So in Amy's case, you want to be really specific about who are the people that matter. Probably your boss's boss, colleagues in cross-functional teams, the people who are on your radar, whose opinion of you will open doors or could close them. Those are the people whose perception of us matters the most. The challenge with perception is that it's often wrong, right? I might hold a belief or an opinion or a view of you because of something that happened to me a long time ago, maybe an emotional filter, or maybe the first time I met you, it didn't go really well. And so I'm holding on to that belief and perception, but it has nothing to do with who you are today. So perception can be wrong. It still matters. And that's why personal branding comes into the conversation, to be able to allow us to be more strategic and mindful about how we're seen to people, especially those who matter the most. The reason we build our brand is because, I don't know, maybe it's the last 10, 15 years, the world changed, right? It's the advent of social media and online tools and the introduction of AI and what happened during the pandemic. But today, more than ever, we need to advocate for ourselves. No one is going to hand us that gold watch after years of service and say, thank you, now go retire. That isn't how we grow careers anymore. The competition has gotten fierce. And whether you're just starting to think about personal branding, or you're in that position to want to grow your value and be more strategic and intentional and focused, today we have to think about ourselves. We have to think about how we're showing up, how we're communicating, how we're acting in the relationships that we have, because others will judge us, right? That's that whole idea of perception. And it doesn't feel good. It's never a fun thing to say, you're being judged. But the reality is, as soon as you came onto this program and you saw the intro and you saw me say hello and you saw what the things I was going to talk about look like, you started judging me. And I know that. And that's okay, because what I'm doing is, through my personal brand, I am managing how you will see me very authentically. This is not about spin or being somebody different. Because if you go to any touch point that I use to promote and market my brand, from YouTube to Instagram to LinkedIn, my website, the people I network with, the ways that I communicate in my writing, all of these touch points should be consistent. And we're going to unpack that a little bit more later. But the idea is, get comfortable knowing that people will judge you. They just will. They will form opinions about you. But you have a lot of control and a lot of tools to be able to manage that. I love the fact that I work in over 30 countries, because what I see is how culturally diverse the world is. And I think most of us today intersect with people in different cultures. Whether you work primarily online or you work with cross-functional teams who sit in other regions of the company in other countries, we're communicating with people with different backgrounds. And I think that's the good news. The part we have to look at is how our brand shows up in those different conversations. And it's all about growing our impact. When you offer an idea, when you lead a project, when you serve as a team member on an initiative, how are you showing up and what value are you communicating? That is how we build our careers. That is how we contribute. And as I move through the next parts of our conversation today, think about what this means for you in your team, what this means for you in your company, or if you're looking for a different job, what it might mean in a different environment. It might even mean you think about it in terms of your community or your country or your industry, because personal brand is not just job specific. Our brands show up at our jobs, but they also show up in how we communicate and engage with people online. And it shows up in how we build relationships in our industry and in our environments. So personal brand is not just job specific. So I offered to show you 3 strategies to really define and then elevate your personal brand. The first one is to have a sense of where you're going. We know that what gets watered grows, right? What gets focused on builds. So, thinking about your brand as something that's organic and thriving and living. I did a program yesterday with a software company, and one of the questions was, when you build a brand, does it stay that way through the rest of your career? And the response I had was yes and no. You build a brand that is anchored in who you are, and then it grows and it develops and it matures and amplifies as you grow and develop and mature. So we want to nurture that thing that is so important to how we're going to be seen. It's not static. And that's the good news. So here's what you can do when it comes to looking at clarifying and outlining your brand. There's 3 things. Make sure you've defined who you are, what you stand for, and what you want other people to believe is true about you. Take control today and start defining that. Don't leave it to chance that everyone out there is going to understand who you are and how you are. You can actually drive that. Oh, shout out to my friend from Bangladesh. Nice to see you. It's really important that we take that control and we define, what are my values? What are the things I stand for? When you're faced with a tough decision, this job, that job, this opportunity, that opportunity, raise my hand, stay silent. What are the values that you draw upon? Write them down. Be clear about them. What is the offer that you bring into the market? The people that you want to serve need something from you. And we're not all the same. We're not all the same. And that's beautiful. That's wonderful. But that means you need to be clear about what not sameness you're offering, right? Think about how many personal branding people there are today. There certainly weren't 16 years ago when I started, but there are today. What makes me different? What makes me special and unique and valuable and attractive to the people who hire me, whether it's to speak or to coach? It's because I'm very clear about my brand. So think about defining what makes you you. And then clarify where your brand and your desired influence overlap, right? What is the difference you want to make? What impact do you want to have? Do you want to be a leader? Not everybody does. Some people are very happy to contribute and have influence and impact in an individual contributor role. Perfectly fine. If you want to lead, how are you going to lead differently? How are you going to lead through a lens of authenticity? How are you going to lead so that people follow you, not just comply with what you're asking for? There's a big difference, right? Leadership is not about compliance. People will follow your instructions if their paycheck depends on it, but they will follow you if they believe in what you stand for and your vision of where things are going. So clarify to yourself, what is the end goal? What is the outcome that you're working towards? It can be big and ambitious, and it can be small. There's no right or wrong answer. And then it's really important to act with consistency towards those goals. When you're clear about your values, You have to live those values, and you have to let people know that you are living those values. When you're clear about where you're headed and the impact and influence you want to have, you have to let people know that that's your goal and then show them that you're making the tough choices. You're leaning in where it's uncomfortable and you're moving forward towards the goals that you have set. So define who you are, clarify where you're headed, and act consistently. Nurture and put water on whatever you want to grow. As an amateur gardener, I can tell you it does work. Without water, things do not grow. So put the focus, put the emphasis, put the passion where you want things to grow. Oh, hello, Maurice. Nice to see you here. So the second strategy that I want to share with you is the importance of visibility. If we can't see you, we can't be influenced by you. And visibility is not just being large and in charge or being the loudest voice in the room, because the loudest voice in the room is not always the one we pay attention to for good reasons. So being visible means you're clear about who you want to serve, you've built a brand, and now you're ready to take that brand into the market. It might mean sitting at the table in meetings instead of sitting around along the back of the wall. It might mean sitting in the front of the room and asking thoughtful questions in the meeting instead of waiting because you're pretty sure someone else will ask the question. Being visible means having courage. It's the first rule I talk about in the new rules of influence, because when we know who we are and what we stand for, we have to have courage to speak up. And courage is not the absence of fear, because you might be terrified, but it means working through that. It means confidently taking one step and then the next step and then the next step to share what you are so passionate about. Hi, Cynthia. Nice to see you. So think about how you can build your visibility, how you can start to be seen. And to unpack the strategy, we need to think about being visible in 3 different situations. Think about how visible you are online. I coach people on their social media presence all the time. And what I often hear is, I built a LinkedIn page and nobody's wanting to connect with me. Well, okay. That's a billboard outlook, right? I believe that if I just put a sign up, people are going to want to call the 1-800 number listed at the bottom. Doesn't work that way on LinkedIn. Social media in general is about engagement. It's about having conversation, sharing knowledge, celebrating each other's success. So think about how active you are online being visible. Are you asking questions? Are you contributing when somebody else asks a question? Are you posting? I had a client recently who was terrified to make their very first post on LinkedIn. I cannot tell you how many sessions we had working on that first post. And my thread through the whole thing was, you will not one day remember your first post on LinkedIn. But this person was very nervous about it. So we made sure that that post was completely on brand, thoughtful, engaging, had a strong call to action, everything you can want. And they made their post. Then I started noticing they made 3 posts a week. And then they were making 5 posts a week. And now this person is like a LinkedIn guru. They're posting all the time and they're getting lots of engagement and lots of reaction because they're showing up. They're being visible. People are starting to sense and get an impression of who they are and what they care about. That's what social media is. That's what the online space is about. So if you're writing a blog, write the blog and then share it on social media and ask people to give you feedback. It's okay if they're engaging on social media and not actually on your blog. That's okay. They're still consuming and appreciating and understanding the content. But we have to see you online in order to be willing to build your brand with you and understand your influence. Next, Think about those messages that you're sending. Think about the communication that you're distributing on a daily basis. Many of us are relying on email and some even on text messaging. But is that a message that could be done in a phone call or even face to face? Being visible doesn't mean always relying on technology to give the right message. Because let's face it, emails can get misunderstood, text messages can get lost, right? I was so grateful when smartphones finally introduced the technology that you could mark a message unread, because I was losing text messages all the time. I would read it and then I would forget to go back and respond. So thank you to the technology gods who made that unread feature possible. But what about a one-on-one meeting? What about sitting face to face with someone? After the pandemic, I think there was this huge swell where we all wanted to meet face to face, right? During the pandemic, we were doing coffee meetings on Zoom, or we were meeting on Teams meetings, and everybody was asked to turn the cameras on because we felt so isolated. And then after the pandemic, I think everybody wanted to go have coffee IRL, right? In real life, not just through an online meeting or a chat. And I don't know why, but it feels to me that things are swinging backwards. I don't know if it feels that way to you, but I almost feel like we're relying more on technology and email rather than wanting those one-on-one meetings. Is that what you're seeing too? If so, let me know in the chat, because I wonder if I'm the only one who has started to say, well, instead of me having to dress up and drive across town, I'll just send you a message on email. I don't like that, because the one-on-one face-to-face meetings are where we see people. When you have an opportunity to sit down with someone who's important in your network, try to do it in person. Try to do it in person, right? It might mean going down the hall and talking to someone on your team instead of sending them a chat or an instant message or an email. Go down the hall and talk to them. If you're doing a team meeting and everybody's cameras are turned off, try turning yours on and asking if your colleagues wouldn't mind turning theirs on. Yeah, it's a little bit of a panic moment if nobody has prepared for that, but it's okay. We all work from home, or we work in a hybrid, or we're working in the office, so our environments look different. But try those face-to-face meetings, because that's how we see you. And finally, think about your network. Think about the people that you need to be visible with. What events do they go to? Are there meetups or industry conferences, associations that they belong to? Where are the people that you need to build relationships? Where are they hanging out? Even if it's online, are they in certain groups on LinkedIn? Are they following certain influencers on Instagram or on YouTube? Where are they? And then is it feasible and attractive to you to be in the same place? Think about being visible with the people that you want to see you. We can't see you if we don't know you're there. So raise your hand, put your camera on, let's meet face to face, and let's have conversation. Building your brand requires you to be visible. It's actually also a rule in the new rules of influence. Visibility is how we build impact. So moving forward, the last strategy I want to introduce to you is actually about you. It's about trusting yourself. It's about relying on yourself. There are so many messages coming at us, and so much advice and coaching and guidance and systems and methodologies out there. I mean, I write books, and I'm an avid reader, but there are so many books out there. There are so many YouTube videos and TED Talks and instruction manuals for how to grow our career and be the best version of ourselves and go forward in this thing called life. But you have a really good sense. You have a good sense of who you are. You have a good sense of what you want. And again, whether you're building your brand for the first time and you're thinking about the new year and some things that you might look at differently, or whether you've been on this journey and you're looking to elevate that brand, trust yourself. Lean into those internal filters. Look at what your heart is saying, what your gut is saying, and what your head is saying, not just one or the other, because all three beautifully work together. And unpacking this strategy, really rely on those values. Your values, when you're clear about what they are, will guide you through the good times, and they will help you navigate stress and challenge. Your values are where you as a human being operate from. I sometimes call it your moral operating system, if you will, because that's what we use to decide if something is good or not good, if it's attractive or we should be repelled. Our values are that internal system. Trust them, lean on them, use them, communicate them, because then it helps other people hold you accountable. And it also helps other people understand who you are. Share those values, communicate them, live them. And I really believe when it comes to trusting ourselves that we can stretch into the inclusive mindset and really focus on inclusivity. I talk a lot about that in the new rules of influence, and not from an HR mandate standpoint, but from a human being to human being standpoint, right? When we can open our heart and our mind to listening to other conversations, to other viewpoints, how other people see the world, then suddenly we have more power. We have more knowledge. We have more exposure to things that we otherwise would have no exposure. And I know it can feel risky. It can feel a little scary to listen to people whose view might be really different from yours, but you can listen without judgment. It might take some practice because sometimes we're not that good at that. But if you can listen without judgment, just listen to learn, listen to expand. You might, at the end of the conversation, be in the very same place you started with. That's okay. Then you didn't lose anything, right? Maybe a few minutes of your time. But I'm a big advocate that to grow as a leader, to grow your influence in your brand, we have to start listening to people who are different, people whose background and experiences are different than ours, because all we can operate from is what we know. But other people know different things. So let's learn from that and see what works in our schema of how we're going to grow. And the last one might feel a little uncomfortable. Here I'm telling you to trust yourself and rely on your own filters and intuition. But doing so also means asking for feedback, asking how other people see you, right? I do feedback assessments with my clients. And oftentimes when we're asking the people in their network, what do you think of this person? What are words that come to mind when you're looking to describe them? What do you think makes them special and valuable and unique? They're always nervous. Every client of mine is nervous. I've never had a client say, "Oh, I can't wait to hear what people think." They're always nervous. But what comes back is so much better than they could have imagined. There may be some opportunity to improve and grow, but there's also things that other people can share with us when we ask for feedback that we didn't know, right? I didn't know that. I did some feedback recently and learned about myself that people see me as warm. And I was delighted by that. It would never have been a word that I would have used to describe myself. I mean, I think I am, but I would use different words. And so many people described me as warm. And I was like, that is amazing. I mean, not only am I a mother, not only am I a compassionate person, but I think of myself as a warm person. And to know that my community, the people who mattered to me, were seeing me that way was so reassuring and uplifting. And it made me lean more into being who I am. So think about asking for feedback. You definitely want to ask for feedback from people that you trust will give you an honest response. If they feel that they can trust you to not react or become reactive when they give you feedback, if they feel that you're going to do something with it, right? Maybe feel better or look at some things you might improve, then they will trust you to give you honest feedback. We don't want dishonest feedback. It doesn't do anything. So I remember a client I worked with years ago, and he had such positive feedback. And then there was one really negative. And I asked him, I said, we got one really negative feedback set. Do you understand where that may have been? And he goes, well, I took a chance and I sent the survey to somebody I had just fired. Like, why would you do that? That obviously was not going to be a successful outcome. So he kind of tainted the whole survey with that. So think about people that you trust, people you work with. If you're going to ask family and friends, just know that they'll give you sometimes a slightly different view. But ask your mentors, ask people that you associate with professionally how you're perceived. In order to elevate our brand, we have to know how we're known today. And we all have a brand. We're all known for certain things. Think about what you can learn from feedback to help you grow and become better. So, my final strategy of the 3 is to trust yourself, to believe in yourself, use your values as filters, think outside the box, listen to other viewpoints, and ask for feedback. And then see what from that feedback makes the most sense to you in growing who you are. I do want to remind you, a little self promotion here, that the New Rules of Influence, the book that really unpacks a lot of this, is available. I would love for you to check it out. If you have checked it out, I would love to hear what you think about the book, and please leave a review on Amazon. It really does help those books get love and attention and focus. So, with that, I am going to make myself full screen here and see if we have any questions. I know some of you said you're coming into this conversation from different viewpoints. Did I hit on some things in this message that addressed those? Are there still questions? I have time. If you have time, let's answer some of those questions. It's really important that we think about how we build our brand, how we unpack that brand, and consistently living that brand. None of us can be perfect, but we should be consistent. So I would love to hear if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and Sabrina will help bring them across. If we don't have questions, I'll keep talking for a minute, but I want to make sure if any of you, Cynthia, if you have any questions, Erin, thank you. I'm glad you liked this. Any else of you have questions? I'll give it a second because I think we've got a little bit of a delay. Sabrina's asking, great. How can we make sure that the values we pick to build our brand are the strongest ones? I find myself having a long list of values and I can't decide. That's most of us, right? Most of us have a long list of values. We stand for a lot of things. When I do this exercise with groups, I will always have them write down all the values they can think of, and then I make them shorten the list and then shorten it again. The point of having your values outlined is that we have to lead through those and we have to act consistent. That's how we actually build credibility. Values plus action equals credibility. So if I have a list of 25 values that I'm going to want to be credible for, I'm going to have to act against 25 values and hope that the people around me see me as credible for 25 values. That's a really tall order. I like to have it boiled down to 3 at most. The 2 that I lead with personally are gratitude and generosity. If you know me, you know that I say thank you a lot. I look for opportunities where I can lead through gratitude, where I can give more than is expected, and that I can tell people how much I appreciate them. Generosity shows up in a lot of the work I do with the military, right? I offer hours and hours of speaking and coaching, and 3 of my books are focused on helping military veterans. That's the generosity. And when somebody comes up to me and says, it's the gratitude and generosity lady, I love that because I've established the credibility through my actions for those 2 values. Now, that doesn't mean those are the only values that I live through, my empathy, my integrity, my passion for people and lifting up unrepresented voices. Those are also values, and I live through those. But the two that I really want to be known by are gratitude and generosity. It's actually the title of my TED Talk if you want to go check it out. So I think it has to be distilled down. We have to boil things down to their simplest. And oftentimes, when we have those long lists and we try to combine them, we see how the values kind of work together. So you might have a value of integrity that includes your value of honesty and compassion and empathy. All of those roll up into integrity. So I hope that answers your question. Mauricio says, too many great points. Okay. Well, the good news, Mauricio, is that this program is recorded. So you'll be able to go back and watch it and watch it and watch it if you want. Here's your question. What if you want to change the brand you're known for, even if it's a positive one? That's also very common, right? We've all built a brand, and maybe it's not the brand that we want, or we want to change it, but also keep it positive. All of that takes strategy. There's absolutely a way to do that. I would make very clear first that you know what brand assets are most valuable to you, right? Is it your credibility? Is it your target audience development? Is it the way that you have shown up online? What are the assets around your personal brand that are most valuable? You do not want to change those, right? They're working for you. You're happy with them. You've worked hard at them. You don't want to change them. Where are the areas that you could introduce some new ideas? Maybe you haven't been active on social media. Maybe you haven't really thought through your networking strategy. Maybe you haven't focused on your presence and your body language and the way that you carry yourself, right? There's a wheel of marketing that I share often where all of the different touch points are on there. And sometimes introducing a new brand element, moving your brand slightly into a different direction, just means leaning into those areas that you haven't spent as much time. I will say that the book I wrote, let me see if I can point to it. It's called Control the Narrative. That book talks not only about building personal brand, but pivoting brand. So let's say you want to change careers. And I run into this a lot with clients, right? They've established themselves very positively as a leader in technology, for instance. And now they want to take all those brand assets, that positive brand, and they want to move it into a different career. So maybe they want to be a motivational speaker or a professor at a university. So they want to move careers. That's called pivoting. And that book really talks about the steps to do that. So, Mauricio, it might be something to check out. If that interests you, you can learn more about that online as well. Thank you. Great question. Do I recommend changing your brand? I love to grow brand. I don't recommend changing brand. Unless there's been a reputation crisis. In those cases, which, believe it or not, control the narrative, that's the third part, is how do you fix reputation if there's been a problem? In those cases, oftentimes we have to rewind, and sometimes we have to rewind even things that are positive to rebuild it in a more thoughtful and strategic way. So hopefully we're just talking about positive things, because when it's a negative reputation event, those can be really unfortunate. They're very emotional. We live in a world where we make mistakes or we're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And when those happen, sometimes we need to retool and regroup on how we're positioned to the world. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I definitely want to close with thanking you. I so love doing these programs. We're looking at adding this feature of me using some slides. So if you would offer feedback on how that worked in the chat or in the comments when this gets posted, I'd love to know if that works well for you, or if you just prefer to have more of a conversation style. Next month, I have a really special guest joining us. He is not only an international leader in the coaching business, but he has a philosophy of leading with a coaching mindset. And I think you're going to absolutely love hearing from him. He's fabulous. He's from Argentina, so the accent is definitely there. But he is a fabulous author and consultant and leader in the coaching industry. So stay tuned for messages about that. Please subscribe to my newsletter so that you know about all of the tools that we're sharing through LinkedIn and other platforms. Be healthy, be safe, enjoy the holidays. If you celebrate here in the States, we've got a big one coming up with lots of food. So please be safe, and I will see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining today. Bye.